ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। यत्र योगेश्वरः कृष्णो यत्र पार्थो धनुर्धरः तत्र श्रीर्विजयो भूति ध्रुवा नीतिर्मतिर्मम। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। I thank you all very much. Kindly please take your seats. So as I said, on this auspicious occasion, we are benefited by the association of great spiritual, philosophical stalwarts. They have marked their presence in the history of Indian glory. In order to introduce these honorable, respected, patriotic dignitaries, I seek shelter of our beloved director of Ayurvedic, Dr. Ajay Sankhe. Dr. Ajay Sankhe is the director of Ayurvedic. He is our beloved leader, and he is the trustee also of the Bhaktivedanta Hospital and also the director of Bhaktivedanta Hospital. And since last many years, he has effectuated thousands of camps all around India in various states for the benefit of India's worthy citizens from all the sacred places of India, at Mathura, Barsana, at Mayapur, at Calcutta, then also in Pandharpur, where thousands and thousands, in fact lakhs of devotees, they have been benefited out of these camps. They are multi-diagnostic camps and also free operations that are conducted. Thousands and thousands of people have benefited from these operations. Even today, around at least 60 operations are done every week, free of cost. So, such a benevolent, magnanimous personality is perfect in introducing today's dignitaries. So, I request Dr. Ajay Sankhe to please come in the dais.
Namaste. Request everyone to settle down, please. So today's function of the release of this book, Indra's Net, is appropriately posted at this very important location named after Veer Savarkar. As a child, I would always read his books, and I still remember one particular passage which he wrote in a very effective way. It has kept memories in my heart even today. He wrote about how in Hyderabad the Muslims corrupted thousands and thousands of Hindus, made them slaves and Muslims. And while they are being carried, tied with ropes, just as somebody can carry cattle through the streets of Hyderabad, they were appealing to their brothers and sisters who were staying in the houses to please come and rescue them. And unfortunately, all of them simply closed their windows. This is the state of our own brothers and sisters and all of us. Today, it is very difficult to find people who can be truly standing for Dharma. Not because they do not love their Dharma, but because we have been so much bombarded by the Western thoughts which are making us ashamed to admit our own religious affiliation. So today we have this wonderful book about which we are going to talk about. Mr. Rajiv Malhotra is already here. And I am requesting Sri Rajiv ji and Mr. Jagdish Shetty, both of them, to come to the dais so that we can start the program. Before we begin the program, I would request Nikhil to come and give flower bouquet to Sri Rajiv Malhotra ji. Also, I will request him to give it to Sri Jagdish Shetty ji. We would like to begin this program by lighting the lamp as a mark of auspiciousness. So I invite both of them. Where is the candle? To light the lamp. We'll wait for some time. Yeah? Yeah, we can begin with, if there is no candle, you can start with that. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Mr. Jagdish Shetty. Before I introduce the speakers, just a few words about IA Vedic, International Application for Vedic Concepts. This particular organization has been, you can say, constructed around the thoughts of how to enlighten our own brothers from Sanatana Dharma. So it has two wings. One is to educate people about their own glory, about the glory of the Vedic Sanatana Dharma, and also because there are so many people who are without understanding the glory of their own religious faith, they get attracted to other faiths based on some facilities or some kind of bhogavad, you can say, which attracts them to that particular religion. And to stop that, we'll also be having works going on in the villages where there are a lot of conversion taking place based on medicines or simple facilities. And not only that, even within the cities, those who are needy, because we have to take care of our own people, we are working on that as well. So there is cultural awareness and there is social upliftment. These are the two things based on our needs of today that Ayurvedic has begun. And this is our great pleasure that we are introducing today's topic of release of this book, the Indra's Net. We will speak about it more. Mr. Rajiv Malhotra will tell you more about it. We were expecting Dr. Swamy to be here personally, but his representative, Mr. Jagdish Shetty, is here. He is the product of the emergency in 1977. That time, he was just a 17-year-old boy, a teenager, and he started assisting Dr. Swamy, and since then they have been very close to each other. And he was the General Secretary of the Janata Party, which was merged recently in Bharatiya Janata Party, for all these years. And he is a street man. He has come up from the streets. And today, he is a very, you can say he's a right-hand man of Dr. Swamy. So we are calling Mr. Jagdish Shetty. We are very honored that he is here to please come and tell us about what Dr. Swamy has told us.
Dr. Ajay Sankhe, Rajiv Malhotra ji, and friends. By me talking here, I am disappointing a lot of the people in the audience who had originally wanted Dr. Swamy to speak. But perhaps you will not be disappointed. We have a video clipping of Dr. Swamy, which we will be playing to you shortly. Dr. Swamy indeed had come to Bombay last night. He had a program in Ghatkopar, had a program in the afternoon at Bandra, but unfortunately due to some important political developments happening in Delhi leading to the elections, he had to rush back to Delhi by a 3:30 flight, and he could not be present for today's program. And also tomorrow early morning, item number 1 in the Supreme Court before the Chief Justice, he has this important juvenile case, as you all know, the 2012 that juvenile rapist Nirbhaya, who raped Nirbhaya, that case is coming up in the Supreme Court, so he had a meeting on that also. So he had to unfortunately leave for Delhi. I know that many of us are all disappointed because of that, but we have a video clipping which we will be playing to you shortly. But just for your information, this was recorded a few hours ago by Ashish Shetty at the airport, and we'll be playing it for you. But meanwhile, he has asked me to convey his best wishes to the IA Vedic for having organized this program and this discussion like the one which we had on the 11th. And especially thanks Rajiv Malhotra for being writing this book, Indra's Net, by which a lot of dialogue will be taking place, a lot of discussion has been taking place, like his earlier two books, which Breaking India and Being Different, has been well discussed, debated, discussions held in various forums, in various cities of India and abroad. And I have had the privilege of meeting Rajiv Malhotra for the first time in Chicago when his book was released in Chicago, and along with Dr. Swamy we addressed numerous meetings. So meeting Rajiv Malhotra ji and especially having discussions with him and his various articles and discussions on the net is very, very thought-provoking, and especially I can tell him that the youth of India look forward to his out-of-the-box thinking by which his ideas are generating a new type of discussion in the Indian intelligentsia. And I request Rajiv Malhotra ji to keep visiting India very often. As you all know, Rajiv Malhotra ji is based in the US, in New Jersey, as you say. He runs this Infinity Foundation and has been going around the world and especially in India and US discussing his topics which are of much importance to the crowd here. So I would thank iVedic to have taken this opportunity to release this book in Mumbai. Now Ashish will play for you the video clipping where Dr. Swamy will be talking on the book. Thank you.
Friends, with deep regret, I, having come to Bombay, have to return this afternoon back to Delhi for an urgent meeting. This being an election season, the time is the essence for these kinds of meetings. So I regret having promised to be present and also looking forward to the occasion when I will be there. Rajiv Malhotra has been known to me for a number of years and lives in a beautiful house in Princeton. There's nothing in his life he lacks, and yet he has set aside all his time for the purpose of writing books about the true history of India. He's already shaken the academic world with his earlier books, such as Breaking India, about our history as is written in the other books. All these total up to a new presentation of the whole truth, which the British very conveniently, the British imperialists very conveniently removed from our. The most interesting phrase that he has brought to our notice in his latest book, Indra is the pizza effect, which means that the accusation is that like the pizza, which was originally a very simple dish in Italy, went to America and got embellished with all kinds of toppings, and then returned back to Italy as if it was something which the Italians had never seen. The same way, the accusation now is that Hinduism was never a serious religion, it was perhaps the most way of life, and then that Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda and others looked at Christianity and its structuring and copied it and sent it back to India as a kind of a new Hinduism thesis. So he has given a number of myths and how they can be exploded, 8 in number, and he's gone to great length to dissect the bunk and the rubbish that is written about India by so-called scholars in various top universities, especially at Harvard University. So therefore, I think this kind of writing is something that ultimately should become textbook reading for graduate students in India, and I'm sure that the future government will definitely want Mr. Malhotra not to live in America at all and come back and create a textbook for Indian history. Our problem is that all the seeds that are being created by different theories in our history books is to divide Indians. These Aryan Dravidian theories is now being shown to be completely bogus by examination of our DNA. There is no difference between the DNA of a North Indian and South Indian, between a Brahmin and a scheduled caste, or a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian. And yet they talk about ethnicity in India, as if it was different races or different people. And also the history is presented as if we Hindus were consistently faced with onslaught from abroad and defeated and conquered and ruled. The British claimed that we are just one more invasion into India, when the fact of the matter is the exact opposite. The mere fact, after 800 years of Islamic rule, India is still a 80% Hindu country, where compared to other places where Islam has gone and conquered countries, they have managed to convert in less than 2 decades the entire population to Islam, or perhaps kill them in the name of being Kafir. So we have today to know our true history, and our true history can be known only if we get a correct perception of what we are, that is the true identity of an Indian. All Indians are the same. We may have variations in language, but we are united by the Sanskrit vocabulary and the similarity of the Devanagari script, which all originate from Brahmi. So one people, the ancient people living in a vast land, have local variations, but the core is the same. And that is why we can say very clearly that India is either a people of Hindu origin or those whose ancestors were Hindus. And therefore we are all united in a Hindustani family. This imperialism in scholarship is something where Rajiv Malhotra is fighting it alone. We need much more support to be given to him, and I am very happy to completely endorse his latest book, Indra, and recommend that all of you read it. Once again, I wish I could have been there at the function and heard Rajiv Malhotra also regret due to certain political compulsions. I have to be back in Delhi. Thank you very much.
So with this is the message from Dr. Swamy, as you all must have seen. I'm sorry for the poor quality of the voice there, because we had to hurriedly do it before he departed for Delhi at the airport. So you'll have to excuse us for that, because we are not sure about the direct relay taking place during our program being on. So I regret the voice quality. Now Dr. Sankhe will take over.
So first we would like to complete the function of release of the book, and then Rajiv will speak. Before that, I would like to introduce Sri Rajiv Malhotra in few words. Sri Rajiv Malhotra is founder of the Infinity Foundation, which has so far given about 400 grants totaling about $4 million. And his main work is in research. He used the Indian lens to map the Kurukshetra of civilizational discourse, identified, studied and responded to biases, stereotypes and denigration of Hindu Dharma, exposed numerous instances of appropriation of Hindu Buddhist ideas and practices that get reclassified as Christianity or Western science. He galvanized awareness among the Indian diaspora, Hindu gurus and civic leaders, funded chairs and programs in prestigious universities that can be game-changing, led school curriculum and textbook activism in favor of our civilization, pioneered research on Indian approaches to mind sciences, publishing History of Indian Science and Technology series. 9 volumes are already completed out of 20. He conducted workshops and youth events on Hindu identity, why, how and what. He has been involved in developing original futuristic solutions to the global issues using dharmic knowledge systems, and he launched social media activism to counter old established print and TV biases. His 2 previous books, he has written 4 books so far, am I correct? 4 books? But the 2 books which are very famous so far are Being Different and Breaking India. All those who have not yet read them, you can have a copy when you go out, and you must read them to understand how we are simply sleeping on these matters, and we will not even understand unless we look at it from Rajiv Malhotra's eyes. He is a person who has deep research into this matter and has studied in such a way that he can see 50 years from now, 100 years from now, what can happen by the so-called innocent looking approaches of the Western religious systems to the Indian religious system. He is a very, very futuristic leader of Dharma, and at the same time, even though he comes from a very affluent family, he is himself a very astute kind of a religious leader. Still, he is a very humble person. The last time when I spoke about him, I actually laid out the same things, but he told me, you are quite generous in your language about me. So I didn't feel that I was generous, I was just stating the facts. So he's very humble also at the heart, and I request Sri Rajiv ji and Jagdish Shetty ji to release the book. I request Rajiv ji to give the first copy to one very important person in the audience. His name is Shrikant Ji Talagiri. He is the writer of the books called Aryan Invasion, Rigveda and Avesta. He is the right candidate to get the first copy. So now I request Rajiv ji to speak about this particular book called Indra's Net from his own mouth.
Just to namaste everyone, and thank you. Just to set the record straight on one thing, I do not come from an affluent family. My parents are middle class. My father's no more. My mother's 89. My mother's this book is dedicated to my mother, so I'll say something that she was the first female student in the medical college in Ludhiana, because it was generally boys, and her father dedicated his life to set up Hindu educational institutions, because they used to be just Christian ones, so medical college and things like that. He was very prominent in the Arya Samaj. So he grew with humble, very not much material stuff, Maybe one ball was the toy we had as growing up, but most people in India used to have just few toys in those days. So very straight. And when I went to United States, I had less than $50 is what the government used to allow, some few dollars you could take. And where I went, there were no other Indians there. So it was a very basic start, you know. So not affluent or anything like that. I'm delighted to be here. I got a call from Dr. Swamy that just a few hours before this that he can't make it. There's an urgent situation in Delhi, and I said I could certainly understand. And I think Jagdish Shetty is a good hologram of Dr. Swamy. Yeah? So thank you for doing this, Jagdish. The book is not about Indira Gandhi. Somebody called me and said, you got the wrong spelling, you know, Indira, you got the wrong spelling. They thought there's some kind of Indira Gandhi is some kind of network, you know, some network. Nor is it about black magic. Some strange fellow interviewing me starts by asking, why are you writing a book on black magic? I said, what does it have to do with black magic? He says, because our Times of India is from there, had a comic series called Indra, and it was all about Jadoo. So I said, so all the more I have to write this book to set the record straight. So just to let you know, Indra is something mentioned in the Atharva Ved that then travels into Buddhism, becomes a central metaphor of Buddhist philosophy, and then it travels to American Buddhists, take it to US, and becomes a metaphor for things like chaos theory, holography, quantum physics, environmentalism, pluralism. You'll see books like Indra's Net and Chaos Theory. You'll see books on holography talking about Indra's Net as a metaphor. It's been called the metaphor for the internet. All these sort of things. So what exactly does it mean in the Atharva Veda is what you should worry about, not some quack Times of India comic series, which is kind of ridiculous. And it shows the amount of distortion of our terms and our categories, and hence the need to rescue them properly, which is what we're trying to do in this book. The Indra's Net is described as the whole cosmos. One way to visualize the cosmos, a poetic way, is that it's a net of jewels that are spreads in all directions infinitely, in all directions, infinite net of jewels, arranged in such a manner that every jewel reflects all the other jewels. So each point in the universe, each particle in the universe contains the whole universe. Every electron contains the whole cosmos. Every ant contains the whole Brahman. Each of us contains all the others. This sort of thing. The microcosm, your body, is the map of the macrocosm, and so on. Everything reflects everything else. This is very deep in our philosophy. In the previous book, Being Different, I called it Integral Unity, and I explain at length what is integral unity and how the West does not have this. They have what I call synthetic unity, because things are separate and then afterwards put together. They're not inherently unified. And this Indra's Net is a very powerful metaphor for capturing this. In the Chinese Hua Yen Buddhism, Avatam Sak Sutra is the defining sutra in Sanskrit, which they translate to Mandarin. That's the defining text for that Buddhism. And there's a huge amount on Indra's Net. Luckily for us, they did not switch the terms. They preserved the terms so a scholar like me can trace it back. And this Huayan Buddhism in China is considered the highest philosophical Buddhism in China. It's Mahayana, Madhyamika Buddhism. And one of their highest philosophies is this Huayan. From there it went to Zen, it became Zen in Japan. So Zen is also based on this, and also Buddhism in South Korea. And then it came to United States. A lot of Buddhist Americans brought this idea, and in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they started seeing the world differently in the light of quantum physics, and chaos theory was born. And so they started seeing Indra's Net as a principle that permeates the whole cosmos. as far as physics is concerned, and the whole ideas of chaos being revised. So, luckily for me, this is a term that is a non-translatable that did not get translated. And since it did not get translated, a curious person would say when they write a book called, if you search, you'll see books like Indra's Net and Chaos Theory. What does Indra's Net have to do with Chaos Theory? You read it, they won't tell you. They'll just use it as a term. And at best, they'll say this comes from Buddhism. That's best they'll say. But if you go to the Buddhist text, and you go back to earlier and earlier versions of it, they're very clear where in the Atharvaveda they got it. So part of my job is, as a scholar, I'm doing this all the time, see how our civilization has migrated and to various places, and the original source is getting deleted, erased, diluted. Most of us don't even know. So we think it's some black magic, or we think it's about Indira Gandhi or something. We don't even know. And whereas the cutting edge thinkers in the US are using this term as their philosophical principle in so many disciplines, so many different disciplines. So what's wrong with claiming it back and saying these things are all of Vedic origin? We also hear that Buddhism came out of Vedic stuff, but where, which sutra, which quote, exactly where it came from, people don't talk about. But this traces the Vedic origins of basic Buddhist philosophy, and then a lot of other things that the West has developed. So I feel that reclaiming these terms and putting them back into our vocabulary is a good idea. And so every time someone has a weird idea about what it might mean, it's my opportunity. It's my opportunity to say, well, that's exactly why we need to write such books, because people like you should know better. So that's sort of just a little bit on the name itself. But let's set the name aside. The name came later because originally I thought I'd write a book called Defense of Vivekananda. Then because that's a large part of this, then I thought I'd write a book on defense of Hinduism, contemporary Hinduism, because while it defends Vivekananda's arguments, in the process it's really defending contemporary Hinduism in a very deeply philosophical way. And so on, the different titles kept coming, and I wanted something more poetic and imaginative, so this is my choice. The book has been launched in different cities. We did a launch in Bangalore. We had two launches of events. One was a corporate event. Mohandas Pai gave a nice talk and there were corporate guests. And then we did a very large public event, huge auditorium, where a prominent Swamy was there, and also one of the sitting justices of the Karnataka High Court was there. So there was a kind of a public launch. We're doing an event day after tomorrow in Delhi, two events. One is in Delhi University, where it will be an academic event. Academic panel of 5 scholars will be giving their critical comments on this book, and I will respond. That will be Delhi University morning event. And then in the afternoon, Arun Shori will give a long analysis of this book, and followed by my comments and Q&A. So this way we are doing this kind of event in many cities. Ahmedabad, there's an Indus University, another location for discussion on this book. We discussed this in Manipal University in Jaipur last week, and a few other places. So the idea is to bring it to various venues and trigger discussion. The book is going to be attacked, and I anticipate that because it names a lot of people. I do it on purpose because I don't want to be ignored by them. I do it on purpose. The intention is to name people who are behind a certain thesis which a given book of mine wants to topple, and each book is written like that. Each book is very different because this Kurukshetra has got many battles going on. It's not like one big battle, many battles going on. So each one requires its own analysis, it's got its own generals, it's got its own leaders, they've got their own sampradaya, their own parampara. We have to go through details and see, how to topple them. And I deliberately name the leaders because they're very important people, and I'm very confident that I can withstand whatever they'll say in return. And each of my books invites this attack, and invariably when they attack, they get it back even more, and then eventually it serves my case. So the first book I wrote was called Invading the Sacred. Unfortunately, somebody advised me that it's better if you put other people's name on it as editors. So the book is not officially with my name on it, but I did most of it. And it's my arguments with scholars, the whole Wendy Doniger and group, scholars who were insulting our goddess, the deities, gurus, Ganesh, Ramakrishna was called homosexual, all these kind of things they were doing. And so I took that entire cabal. I had many arguments with them online, I had arguments at their conferences and right in front of them. This became a very big deal. I have the distinction of being on the first page of Washington Post. First page, an article that said this high priest of academics are being attacked by this Indian. I mean, they found it very amazing that an Indian is doing that, and so the whole article is on my attack with these Westerners. And so a lot of people called me and said, "Arey, you become very famous. Washington Post got you on the cover page." And then since these people, some of them were from the University of Chicago, then the University of Chicago magazine interviewed me, and they did a whole cover story, their own magazine. Actually, the magazine interview with me and analysis was quite fair. In fact, it quoted me quite a lot and put their own professors on the spot. And then they hired a PR agency and got some articles placed in New York Times by the PR agency. Then they went and got some interviews on CNN. So they really went, it was a very big thing for them. It was a huge deal that they are being attacked because they are so high. All the Indians are following them blindly. And so therefore, for somebody like me to expose that, look, this is not right, was very dangerous for them. They felt that now a lot of people will start toppling their authority. These people were being felicited every year in Hindu temples, given huge honorariums, given awards, long line of Indians wanting to get admission and get a PhD under them. So all this changed after that book. More and more people started kind of doubting them and being suspicious of their activities. And then the second book was Breaking India. The first one is actually out of print. We want to get it back in print, but we don't have any of them stocked today. Breaking India we have. Breaking India was a different book against a different set of opponents. And the thesis of Breaking India is that a lot of foreign entities, Ford Foundation and many others from Europe and US, churches, left-wing organizations, think tanks, CIA related, all kinds of things have been messing in India, trying to fragment India, creating vote bank, funding separatist identities. These have created problems in many, it created vote banks, created fragmented identities among Indians. So the breakup of the Indian identity into little identities, Dalit identity, Dravidian identity, different ones in Northeast and Central India and all that. I'm tracing the funding, where it comes from, how they empower leaders, and so I did this focusing in Tamil Nadu, but the thesis applies in most parts of India now. And this book also stirred a lot of controversy, but not a single sentence has had to be corrected on account of anybody challenging us, although we faced many challenges absolutely successfully every single time. For instance, I showed that Berkeley's chair of Tamil studies has been planted with a certain Dravidianist view, and they are always doubting the integrity of India and the legitimacy of Sanskrit tradition, and these people were selected, they come from a certain background. So the person who's occupying the chair, who's named, wrote all these emails or sent all these protest letters. So I always like to invite them to a public discussion, because if it's private, then even if I refute, people won't find out. And this guy accepted it saying, but then we sort of took his letter, our response, and within 1 or 2 rounds back and forth, he ran away because he didn't want to face any more of this. So that's been my style. Take an important issue, do a lot of research, homework, be very rigorous, make sure we're bulletproof, then go to battle, and don't put all the arguments right away. Put enough to provoke them, hope they'll fight. Then we can get more arguments, and then we keep going. The deeper they get, the more it's worse for them. So this is kind of a strategy called be non-ignorable. Be non-ignorable and provocative. So they can't ignore because it's non-ignorable. But if they don't ignore and get provoked, then they get drawn in. So that's the kind of crisis for them I'm trying to create in these books. The next book after that was Being Different, which is not so much with individuals and systems of institutions, but philosophical principles, how our dharma traditions differ in very dramatic ways. And that has caused a lot of rethinking among our gurus, among our political leaders who are going around teaching things that are not really good for us, not even correct, who are translating the Sanskrit non-translatables in ways that is distorting, who are often talking about how everything is same, or it's a way of life and nothing else, things like that. So it's a very strong philosophical clarification. Now this fourth book, Indra's Net, is what I will now tell you about a little bit. There are provocations for many kinds of people, those who are Hindus and already assertive Hindus. There are a lot of provocations to educate them and improve their ability to debate and their understanding of what's going on. Also for Hindus who are philosophical and not very active, don't want to confront, don't want to be public, or not interested in identity, like say a very Advait Vedantin philosophical person who says I'm only interested in my practice. I'm questioning some of their ideas also, some of their philosophical ideas. And then I'm introducing, like in all the other books, I'm introducing some new vocabulary, some new paradigms, new ways of thinking. Now, as far as the outspoken Hindus are concerned, I'm exposing to them, bringing to their attention, a thesis which has become very popular in the last 60 years, which calls itself the thesis of Neo-Hinduism. Neo-Hinduism meaning that Hinduism is really not true Hinduism. Hinduism is some kind of phony thing, something that's been fabricated, put together. According to this thesis, there was no unified tradition like that by any name. I'm not worrying about the name Hinduism. It may have been called by another name, but my claim is there was a thing which is unified, which has been there for a long time. By whatever name it was called is irrelevant. The thesis of the other side is that there was no such thing. And the British made Indians feel inferior. So people like Swamy Vivekananda had an inferiority complex, and a lot of the other ones had an inferiority complex compared to the British. And they therefore took ideas from Christianity and Western Enlightenment, Western secularism, put them in Sanskrit terms just to feel that we have this too. So Hinduism was manufactured as a response to an inferiority complex with the British and as a device for political unity to fight the British. So it was not really a spiritual tradition that existed before the British. That's the thesis. The thesis says that Vedanta, Advait Vedanta of Shankara, is contradicted by the yoga, and hence Vivekananda's project to unify Vedanta, which is Gyan Yoga, with yoga, which is Raj Yoga in Vivekananda's terminology, this unity is flawed. There is no such unity possible. A unified Hinduism as per Vivekananda is flawed and erroneous is what they're claiming. They also claim that Karma Yoga, Vivekananda introduced Karma Yoga because Christians have charity and he found that Hindus are not charitable people. Christians have philanthropy and he wanted to encourage Hindus to do similar things. So he called it Karma Yoga and made it look like it's part of our tradition, but actually it was not part of our tradition before. According to this thesis, the term Karma Yoga in Gita has a different meaning. It is not charity towards others, it is not philanthropy. Karma Yoga in the Gita, according to this thesis, is simply what I do for my own moksha. I do some karma to get moksha. It is not I help my neighbor. It's not that I am compassionate, I have karuna towards other people. That is not the idea of Karma Yoga in the Gita. It's things I do for my own benefit in terms of my own liberation. So this idea of helping other people is a Christian idea according to this thesis. Then the idea that bhakti is also very different. Bhakti never really existed. Bhakti is just a medieval thing and it comes after Christianity, so it's Islamic and Christian kind of an influence. So in this way, they built a very detailed scenario. And then this thesis, which starts with a man called Paul Hacker in Germany, and then it comes to the United States with a man called Halfwas, a very prominent Indologist in University of Pennsylvania. Then a man called Agehanand Bharati, that is his Hindu name, he's actually a Viennese, Austrian, who got initiated. He wrote a book called The Ochre Robe, a very famous, a lot of Indians worship him because he wrote about Hinduism and he lived here for many decades as a Hindu. But then he U-turned, rejected Hinduism, went back and wrote all these things. And then this idea of Neo-Hinduism went to England. A woman called Ursula King, who's a Presbyterian minister and for 30-40 years a scholar of Hinduism. She took a lot of Hindu ideas and transferred them to Christian thinking. So she was on the one hand plagiarizing, and then on the other hand she was also part of this thing saying Hinduism itself is a bogus thing. The major tipping point for this movement was when Ursula King had a PhD student, an Indian, actually from Guyana, I think, or Trinidad, from the Caribbean. His name is Anant Rambachan, very, very famous, very well-known Advaita Vedanta scholar, quite a well-read, learned man, has gone to many Swamis, been initiated by many Swamis, gives talks and very famous. He became a young PhD scholar at the time in England, and he learned this Neo-Vedanta, this Neo-Hinduism thesis. He's the one who then added a lot of philosophical depth to their thesis, because he was a good man. They appropriated from the Hindu side. They appropriated this guy, and ever since he's celebrated by Hindus. If I tell Advaita Vedanta Hindus that this is his thesis, many of them don't know. Because they see him as a guy who comes and teaches Vedanta, and he's quite well regarded and very lofty and very knowledgeable. He's certainly a very knowledgeable person. He's on many international bodies as the official Hindu representative. BBC had a 20-part series on Hinduism that he featured. Tony Blair Foundation of World Religions and all that has him as the Hindu representative. The Vatican has some kind of interfaith dialogue going on. He's the Hindu representative. So he's not a trivial guy. So through that mechanism it arrived in India. And then Ramila Thapar is the first Indian to write a very well quoted article called Syndicated Hinduism, which became very famous, which says that Hinduism is kind of a syndicated idea. It was not really an idea of the people. Some group of elite thinkers from Vivekananda onwards kind of syndicated this idea, fabricated it for political purposes of oppression. It was originally done to unite elitist Hindus against British. After the British left, then the Hindutva movement took this idea. Vivekananda had gone, and then they started oppressing minorities and women and all of that. So she took this Neo-Hinduism thesis, gave it a political dimension. See, the thesis originally by the various Europeans had all these components in it. Ram Bachchan, the philosophy guy, added some philosophical arguments from, but his whole life has been to show that Shankara and Vivekananda are contradictory, and that Vivekananda contradicts Shankara, therefore he is not legitimate. That's his argument, and I'm showing that it's not true. And then Ramila Thapar takes this, gives it a political image, that this is all for political exploitation. A religion is manufactured for political purposes. So this begins a whole series of books. One of them is called Was Hinduism Manufactured? And it won all these awards. Guys are given tours and given a lot of recognition and funding by all these agencies to go around. Then this becomes a very popular subject by the Indian left. This Mishra, Pankaj Mishra, who writes in British papers and Times of India and Indian papers, called an authority on these matters, he starts talking about the Neo-Hinduism thesis that there was really no such religion until the British came and invented it, and our people just took it from there. It is these people like Ramachandra Guha, these leftist groups of people, it's become fashionable from the origins in Europe. This thesis has gone from those guys to the Shashi Tharoors and these sort of people. So no one has, until this book that I did, no one has written a comprehensive kind of anatomy of this thesis, understanding what it is and giving a response to it. People have been reacting to an episode. So somebody writes, one of these left guys writes something, and our people get angry and respond and say you're a bad guy and it's a personal attack on him and he's a leftist and whatnot. But that hasn't worked because those guys keep doing it. So what this book is doing is actually demonstrating. There's a chapter called the echo chamber, which says that these guys are basically ignorant. They're just echoing each other, and they are echoing Westerners who understand Sanskrit, who understand philosophy, who know what they're doing. But the Indians are copycats who don't even know the text. They don't even understand, they neither understand Vivekananda nor understand Shankara, and they're trying to say that these things don't work together. But they are really just a very superficial people who just copy phrases here and there, cut and paste kind of, copy paste is what they're doing. So this book opens up a huge discussion, debate, fight with the Indian left, showing that they really don't have their facts and they've just basically quoted here and there, and by quoting enough each other, they try to get some mileage out of it, make it legitimate. The first part of the book is called Purva Paksh, which is a term meaning we study the other's point of view. So I have a separate chapter on each of the leading thinkers in this Neo-Hinduism camp, and I give them detailed views of what they've said, quoting them. And the second part is called Uttar Paksh, which is my response to these people, and that response demolishes them, and the idea is to show that the whole thing is based on misquoting, on quoting things out of context, on mistranslating, and so it goes into details to show. And I don't think the Indian left who's quoting all this even have the chance to respond to what I've written, because the level at which I'm going is so deep, and I'm going to their guru originated it in Europe, that the people here don't even have the background to be able to respond to it. And I'm comfortable with that, because that's their problem, not my problem. So, when I talked to Arun Shore, he called me and I went to his house just a few days ago, because he's going to launch, and he's read this whole book. He's had it for 2-3 weeks, and every time I chat with him, he says, I'm on such and such chapter, having a great time reading it. So I know he's really gotten into it. So his comment was that he said, all these years I didn't know where the left is getting all these ideas from, because they seem like, but it was not, nobody has figured out where they're getting it from. And so he says, now it seems that we can really go into the roots of the problem and attack. And this will probably start a new kind of fight, a fight at a different level than we've had in the past, which is what I'm looking forward to. Now, one of the things this book does is also expose Hindu organizations that are funding the wrong people. You see, often I'm asked, आपका इसके साथ क्या प्रॉब्लम है, बड़ा अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छी संस्कृत बोलता है, हिंदूज को प्रेज करता है. You know, what they don't know is the whole gamut of what that person is about and what that person, where that person comes from and where he fits in this discourse. All they know is what he's told them and maybe one book which may all be nice and easy for us, but they haven't really studied the works of this person. So our funding donor type people have been sponsoring. Some of the people are named. They've been sponsoring such people to come and give talks. Huge audiences gathered, awards being given. Some of them have been given awards. One of the guys who I've named here, who is into the Aryan theory in a big way, he talks about it, who says there's no such thing as unified Hinduism, and he gives these arguments of the new Hinduism to make his case. He says the only unity of Hinduism is abusing caste. That is the only unifying thing. Otherwise, there's no philosophical unity. So, a person like that gets awarded the Vivekanand Visiting Professorship in University of Southern California by Hindu group very close to our Hindu nationalist organizations. These guys raise money from Indians to help in our cause, and they give this money for such people. So I have a problem with such people also. When people ask me what is your problem, I say let my book come out because I don't want to keep repeating my arguments. Let my book come out. It names these kind of things, makes it very clear. So you see, the book gives you a checklist. If somebody comes looking for a grant, if somebody is to be vetted as to whether you would accept him as a person on our wavelength or not, whether he's qualified to represent us properly, there should be a list of questions on where he stands on this position, these different positions. I'm actually developing a whole criteria for legitimizing who is qualified to be a leader of Hinduism. I'm developing that as a separate thing. But one of the criteria has to do with the issues in this book. If you were to ask these people, do you think Hinduism is a unified entity with an antiquity, continuity? So continuity and unity, do you subscribe to that? They'll have a very difficult time. If you really pin them down, they'll have a very difficult time. They'll mumble jumble, try to avoid the issue. But then if you really pin them down, they're not going to be able to say yes because their own work for decades is on the other side. And yet these are the kind of people who can sneak in because they're very articulate, very smooth and very charming and jovial and charismatic, and so our people give them funding. So this is one of the battles I'm also starting with our own people. I hope to start battles with our people who are patronizing such scholars, that this is, you either should be on their, if you want to support them, come debate me on my book, because I have a problem. If you want to agree with this book, then why are you funding those guys? This is going to strike a kind of, discord with some people. Then there are people who are Hindus, very sincere, who are Advait philosophers, who have actually bought into the argument that Vivekananda is a bit of a kind of a not solid, and that they bought into this argument that based on Shankara's Vedanta, Shankara's Advait, all this thing called modern Hinduism, it unifies karma, bhakti, Raj Yoga and all that is just not valid. It can't be valid. And in fact, when I write a book, I have many drafts. I keep sending it for comments and criticisms to various knowledgeable people. And I'm so happy when people take my book seriously. And then I look at all their comments and I come up with the next draft. And then I send it again to many people. I do this 5 or 6 times, sometimes even 10 times before my book is ready for publishing. And even then there are errors, typing errors and little editing errors which have to be fixed in a later edition. But at least I put it through a lot of reviews of ideas. As far as the concepts and ideas are concerned, I get them challenged quite a lot. So one of these iterations, what I did is I put a posting at an e-group called Advaita. It's a list with a large number of people, very serious people, very deeply into Advaita. And I said, those who want to review in confidence, confidentially, can email me. Here is what the book is about. Just a little to tease them. A lot of people contacted me, and I said, before I expose the whole thing to you, I just give you my synopsis of my thesis as far as Advaita is concerned, and then you can decide. So I said to them that the Advaita of Shankara did have some issues with yoga. Shankara did have some issues with yoga. But he saw yoga as a dualist system of Sankhya. That's why he had this problem. And also Shankara was primarily debating Buddhists. That was the context in which he was writing all these things. He also praises yoga. He praises yogis as great people. He praises that. And after Shankara's era is gone, his successors, the heads of the Sringeri Mutt, which he started, have great things to say about the unity of yoga and Vedanta. Great things to say. So it is not like Vivekananda suddenly invented these out of thin air and got inspiration from British. These have been part of our Hindu lineage for a very long time. So I wrote this expecting that people in the Advait list would be interested to help me, and many of them were. And I got good insights and good discussions with them. But quite a few of them said, we actually agree with the thesis of that there is no unified Hinduism, that the other side is correct. So there is also well-meaning discussion amongst ourselves we have to have. We cannot assume that such a problem doesn't exist, because clearly the other side has exploited this. Clearly many people on our own side are arguing in their favor. Clearly many people on our own side who are more into funding and politics and organizing chairs and getting their pictures taken and all that, but don't really understand the issues, they are actually doling out money to those guys. And clearly that is the thesis of the other side, which is the foundation of the whole Indian left attack on Hinduism. So it is a very big deal. This is a huge thing being excavated that you have to understand and deal with, come to terms with. The original ideas have been introduced. I always like to have no more than just a handful, and I always like to come up with some new kind of phrase. So I came up with this whole, in earlier ones I came up with Hindu phobia and Wendy's children, and I came up with sepoys, and then this whole idea of Sanskrit non-translatables and integral unity, and these sort of, then each one of those, there's about 20 vocabularies of 20 major items of vocabulary. Each of them becomes a topic of discussion. Each of them gets debated, and people start introducing and quoting these works. And I think that's good, because that's how a new idea gets circulation and gets currency. So I've introduced some new ideas here. One of them is called open architecture, and I'm describing a whole chapter that the unity of Hinduism since antiquity and its continuity. So it cannot be something said to be just artificially manufactured by Vivekananda, but a very ancient unity and continuity. I explain what it is as an open architecture, which therefore is fluid, it is open, it can adapt and adopt, and how it keeps evolving from one stage to the next. And that's a whole chapter called the open architecture of Hindu civilization. Then I have clarified the concept of digestion, which has been introduced in my earlier work. I've clarified that and given numerous examples in a chapter, and these examples are separate volumes that I'm writing, which take me time to finish. Then I have a whole thesis on how the open architecture is vulnerable. Because if you're open, like internet is very open, but people can bring viruses, and they can sabotage, subterfuge, they can try to knock you, bring your site down, they can hack, because it's open. So similarly, Hinduism, as a very open architecture, means that a lot of people can sneak in and come and do some mischief, which has happened to us so many times, keeps happening today. So what is the defense? And here I've coined two terms. These are terms that are going to start creating a big turmoil, but I don't mind that, I want that. One of the terms is called porcupine defense. I've coined the term porcupine defense. And what it means is this: porcupine is not an aggressive creature, but it has these quills that if you put these quills out, then it's difficult for the predator to eat the porcupine, because if the tiger comes and eats this porcupine, then the tiger's own digestive tract will cut, and the tiger could kill himself. So even a very tough predator looks around, tries to figure out how do I, this, and the porcupine surrounded himself with those quills. That is his defense. So what that means is, porcupine defense means I have something in my tradition, in a certain idea that people want to appropriate. They want to swallow it and digest it. I have a certain idea, I have some components in it that will kill him. If he were to eat that idea, he will no longer be Christian, or he will no longer be whatever kind of predator he is. If he digests it, it will die. So once you've identified what that is, then it means that you have to not let them separate it out. Because imagine if a tiger could remove all the quills one by one, separate the quills, and he could eat him. So it's important for the porcupine's defense to work, that those particular mechanisms which prevent the other guy from swallowing him, those mechanisms can never be separated. And this is what the gurus have to learn from this strategy. Certain things you do not remove. So I've given a lot of this philosophy and theory and strategy in one of the final later chapters, and then I've given a few examples, but a lot more I'm developing. So this defense could be, porcupine's defense could be in the form of a philosophical construct which they cannot accept because it undermines their whole idea. It could be a symbol, it could be a non-translatable, which if accepted would contradict their whole way of thinking. So there are many ways of having this porcupine's defense. So porcupine's defense is a deterrent against being digested. A related concept that I've introduced here is called poison pill. So there's two ideas, porcupine defense and poison pill. Poison pill is कि आपको मिठाई के अंदर एक साइनाइड की गोली डाल दी है, आपको कहा है कि प्लीज़ खा लीजिए, बहुत अच्छी है, and the idea is कि आपको I want कि तो आप खा लें, और आप खाएंगे, digest होगा, तो you will die because there's a poison pill inside. So this poison pill, also I give examples of very nice things which people want to appropriate, but if they appropriate these things, since it's got a poison pill inside it, which they may not see until they practice that technique for a while, then it will affect them, and they will not be able to be who they are. They'll have to be transformed. So there is similarity between porcupine defense and poison pill. The distinction is that one is a deterrent, which means I don't want to be digested, I don't want to be swallowed, I want you to avoid me, so I'm making it very explicit that this will harm you. Don't touch me. That is porcupine defense. And the other is I'm being sneaky. I want you to digest me because it will kill you. So that is the poison pill. So these are two. So once you have, people ask me what's wrong with saying Jesus lived in India. I'm saying it will confuse our people. It will be a bridge to more conversions. It will show that everything is same. He's just one of our sons only, So every time there is a attempt by the other side to look like us, disguise like us, inculturation. Sufism is a form of that. We can all become Sufis. Why not? They're talking the same philosophy and all that. For all these years, I've been telling people, they have a strategy to digest us. We do not have a strategy to digest them because we don't even know who we are. We are so confused. And if we go into this, let's digest you, you digest us, they will win. We will fall apart because people are so confused. So I've also said, wait until this book comes out, because once you have understood the porcupine defense, and once you've understood the poison pill offense, poison pill is an offense, porcupine is a defense. Once you've understood these strategies, and you're very good at it, then you can create them, you can utilize these, then you can go to battle and say, okay, I'm willing to talk about how things can be same, I'm willing to incorporate Jesus but on these terms. You see, I know how to modify the Jesus ideas that you have in order that we can say he's also Ishta Devata. So in other words, all these nice sounding diplomatic things that I have previously wanted we should not do, in this book I'm showing, provided as long as you are very solidly entrenched and solidly established in these principles, it becomes safe for you to do. So I do these in my life, but I don't encourage others to do it until they've really perfected it and become very strong warriors, intellectual warriors. So this book also allows us to get closer in combat, close encounters, intimate encounters, rather than staying away from them. Because if you are protected by porcupine defense and poison pill, then you can play that game. You can play that game in a way that you know you will win because you know that they will fall apart. That has to be worked out before you start that game. The final concept is I took a very old construct. People have asked, and I've given it a new name, I've reinvented that. Old Sanskrit term. People say that we don't have infidel term, we don't have kafir term. So everything is same, sir. वो भी same है. We never opposed anybody. So why there is no us and them? People talk like that. So my research also discovered that is not true. We have had a term for us, them, philosophically. And the term is astik and nastik. The term astik nastik has had changing meaning. It is not, if you ask people what is astik nastik, often they like to say that those who believe in Vedas, those who don't. That is one term. Before that it had another meaning. In Manu Smriti, it has a certain meaning. Who are the Nastik? It has a meaning. Then Haribhadra, a great philosopher who's synthesizing Hindu, Buddhist, Jain ideas and trying to combine things and separate, differentiate with who's in and who's out. He redefines and he says that anyone who believes in an afterlife, that would include Jain and Buddhist, they also believe in a reincarnation. Anyone who believes in afterlife is Astika. Some others define Astika, earlier had defined Astika as believe in a God, supreme being. You see? So the definition of who gets to be in has changed. If you consider Astika as us, people who subscribe to some principles, then the criteria of being Astika versus Nastika has evolved in history, and I show you. In fact, I can identify 15 different, or about a dozen different periods with different ideas of Astika, different ideas. For simplicity, because otherwise the book gets very heavy, I mentioned 3 or 4 how the word Astika has evolved and changed its meaning, and then it became that Vedic, and those who subscribe to the Vedas as ultimate authority are Astika, and those who not, then therefore Buddhists and Jains are excluded. So, but this term Astik Nastik suggests that our ancestors have been very conscious that there are certain principles which people should adhere to be considered part of us, our way of thinking. So when we say our worldview, what does it consist of? Well, we can now say that we have to now define what is Astika for our time. So in the final chapter, I'm defining what is Astika, what is my proposed idea for Astika, which will be a very big, what I call the big tent Hinduism, the big tent Dharma, which includes a whole lot of our diversity, and those who cannot subscribe to that are called Nastika. And that is their choice, they can make and be Astika or Nastika. So, my friend Ganesh will recall an interesting evening we spent in Mumbai two weeks ago, some prominent businessman's house. He threw a gathering and said, I'll bring a lot of people and we'll discuss and whatnot. And we were a little kind of not sure because he's very well known Hindu. He's prominent, his institutions of learning and his name, because his father was a really great guy. He sponsors a lot and everybody in Delhi would think he's one of the most reliable Hindu sponsors. So anyway, I've known him for a while, and he threw this gathering in his house. And because he's a friend, I don't want to make it personal. The point I'm making is more important than the personality. So in the house there was a gathering, And I was discussing that this open architecture, and this open architecture is very welcoming of all those who are willing to check the box and say, I accept this, openness and whatnot. And one guy was very disturbed, and so we had a nice back and forth. And this guy said, I'm very disturbed because I think certain religions, and he said Muslims, Christians, he said these friends of mine are good Indians. They pay their taxes, they support our cricket team, they do the bhangra, they like Bollywood, they're proud Indians, no doubt about it. But I think they will feel bad that we all have to belong to this open architecture. So I said that's because they believe in a closed architecture. He says, well, the point is that they feel uncomfortable. You think that this offer of openness is good, and everybody who is good Indian should be part of this open architecture, but what if people don't want to? So I said that's like saying that a healthy body should also welcome the cancer. It should say that even if you don't accept me, even if I'm willing to have respect for you provided it's reciprocal, even if the other guy says I want to undermine you and I do not want to accept this openness, then you are saying even he should be welcome. And this guy had very trouble. He could not answer back logically, but he kept saying that he kept kind of wanting to include as good Indians those who want to deny, who want to undermine it, okay, by rejecting the open architecture idea. So I said to him, what if one of the criteria is that your ultimate narrative that you subscribe to should have India as the sacred geography, cannot have sacred geography in another location, because if that is your sacred geography, then when the chips are down, ultimately that's your sacred geography. And if there were ever a tension, your loyalty is there, because that is your sacred geography. So I would want that one of the criteria for being considered a patriotic Indian is that you should consider this to be your sacred geography over any other. And that means that the history that happened somewhere in some other sacred geography is not as important as the history that happened on this sacred geography. So being very clear on sacred geography. So being very clear on sacred geography, there also has an implication of sacred history. So now you can't say that my ultimate authority of the ultimate authority of truth is a foreign nexus based somewhere, which is a history of some people there, which happened to that in that sacred geography, and I'm a member of that, and yet I call myself a fully patriotic Indian, because then you have a conflict of interest, and these people are businessmen. So this is a very, very deeply thought out analysis in this book of how we should define astika and be very clear about saying that there are some criteria. There's an open architecture, and it includes all the people who choose of their own. We do not judge them. We do not say you are astika or nastika. We say these are principles. You have to judge for yourself, and every individual on a personal level should be able to judge for himself whether he wants to comply and be astika or be considered nastika. And therefore this open architecture can remain vibrant and succeed and thrive without being threatened by those who should not be part of it. Because if they're part of it and they're trying to subvert it, then it's a contradiction, it's a conflict of interest. This made the person so miserable, and that's exactly why I wrote this book. Because I want to get the naive Indian, naive guru, naive guys talking mumbo jumbo a little bit clear on how to debate these points. This is meant to make our people smart on how to debate these points. So, to really make my day in that particular event, this person that I'm referring to says, well, whatever they are like, if these people have been with us for 1,000 years, they are part of us, no matter what. They may be even subverting us, but they're part of us. Even if they're subverting us, even if they're going to undermine us, even if they're going to kill us, we have to respect them, they're part of us, even if they won't respect us. So then I said, according to that logic, Sri Krishna should not have asked for a war against the Adharma. He should have said that they are your cousins. So I said that, am I right that you are supporting the ideology of Arjuna early in the Gita, who actually was giving those arguments? He was saying, why should I fight? They're my cousins. Why should I fight? Whatever they're saying is fine. And it takes 18 chapters of arguing for Krishna to explain that whether they are cousins or not doesn't matter, whether they've been part of us doesn't matter. And the point is that if it is adharma, it undermines the dharma, you have to go and fight. So I said, are you saying that Sri Krishna was wrong and you would rather support the early Arjuna? He said, well, and that is also what Amartya Sen says. This is what he said. So that's his argument. That is his point of view. That even Amartya Sen says that Sri Krishna was wrong and Arjuna was right. So this is how deluded we have become. This is how deluded we people have become. Our experts, our authorities, even this guy who is supposedly champion of Hinduism, how muddled up he is. And so the purpose of this book is to put some very hard-hitting, controversial points right on the table. And this is a defense of Vivekananda, it's a defense of Adi Shankara, it's a defense of the unity of our tradition, it's a defense of the continuity of our tradition. It introduces the idea of we are open architecture, we should be fearless to open architecture, but we should also be wary of digestion, and we should also be wary of people undermining us and subterfuging us, and therefore we have to have porcupine defense and poison pill, and we must be very clear on what it takes to be an astika, and we should be able to challenge people to join us on this open architecture, otherwise they are nastika. Thank you.
That was amazing and excellent. I think he deserves a much louder applause. I'm sure after his speech, which is so clear about the concepts, we are right now in the phase of our dharma where Amartya Sen becomes greater than Krishna. That's our problem. And he is right now, actually, that person who was in that businessman's house is a representative to many of us. It's unfortunate. We would invite questions now. Is that okay?
Yes, I'd love to.
And you have those prayer papers. You can write down the questions and send them here, one by one. Or there is a mic here. People can take mic, but please ask specific questions.
This is a question to Rajiv ji. We are discussing at the intellectual level right now. But if we see the attack which is going on, which is going at the grassroots actually. So how do we tackle it? Because we'll be discussing this for a long while at this platform. But if process, I'm here. Yes. Yeah. So, if this discussion just happen at the intellectual level, at the academic level, and if process changes are not brought at the grassroots level, how are we going to impact this panel discussions?
Okay, I'll answer. Okay, I can wait. In future, could people who ask the question come here, because it's easier for the video to capture your face. It's lit up, so I'll request that. The question is, all this is good at the intellectual level, the internet level, but what about the grassroots level where you're having a different war? You see, the intellectual level of the opponent is where they came up with their strategies. It is not overnight. They've come up with these strategies, discussed them, done a lot of scholarship. They have a lot of seminaries, a lot of Ford Foundation grants, doing research. They've come up with these strategies intellectually, tested them out in the grassroots. Then they've come up with programs that work for them, empowerment training, youth training, leadership training, human rights training. Under fancy terms, they've come up with a lot of these packages at the grassroots and produced thousands of grassroots leaders of our country who are loyal to their point of view. So the reason they're winning this war is not because they just went with jhandas and shouting slogans and into the grassroots and did it. They've actually thought through the intellectual dimensions also. They've trained people to argue from their point of view. So if we are now having this desperation because our leadership has neglected this dimension of strategy, this dimension of research, this dimension of testing out models. We have been, the people who should have been doing this have for decades been just sleeping and having ribbon cutting and celebrating, patting each other's back that everything is great. We haven't really been doing this work. So had we been doing this work, we would have had these intellectual ideas and strategies and trained our cadre of people to be able to use these and carry them forward. So right now, the problem we have is a desperate one, and part of the desperation is this lack of consistency and clarity among the Hindu leaders on these very principles. In what I'm saying right now, what I just said, the few principles I gave, you can bet if I were to spend a year and give 2-3 workshops a day to different groups, I would have to go on and on arguing with our own people to get them on track. And unless we can be on track in a consistency, we cannot fight the grassroots level. Because if you go to the grassroots, you're going to find a lot of problems from our own people. People say that 80% are Hindus, and I disagree with that statistic. No more than 25% have ever voted politically for a very strong Hindu voice in government. So 80% minus 25 is 55. That means more than half of the country's population are more than 50%. It means that is this on? You can turn it off. Maybe I'll stand there. That is better. Yeah. Maybe just turn it off. So if 80% are said to be Hindus, and no more than 25% are able to stand up, speak as Hindus, support Hinduism, be very consistent about it, then it means that the difference between 80 and 25, which is 55% of India's population, more than half the country, are dysfunctional Hindus. They may be by name Hindus, nominal Hindus, maybe they send you a Diwali card or do some little gesture or something, but they really aren't clear. They're either scared or they're confused or they're full of contradictions or they're opportunistic. This is the market. That is the target I am trying to get to with my work. Is reach out to those who, and their leaders are confused, and they're spending money on things that may be contradictory. Look at the funding I just mentioned in my talk, which is millions of dollars going to the wrong side because the people who are giving these grants are themselves confused. So everybody has to do different jobs. My job is to prevent our money being drained into the wrong hands. My job is to train a cadre of religious leaders from various organizations. I'm working with ISKCON. I'm going to give a talk in Calcutta with all the leaders of the Ramakrishna Mission. In Bangalore, I had one of the major gurus who was really excited about this, coming and training, who doing workshops for his people. So if I can train, I have 3 or 4 target people. One is the leadership, well-educated leadership of our Hindu organizations. Various Hindu organizations get the young people who are highly educated. There are a lot of sadhus, swamis who are well-educated now. Give them these ammunitions, give them these weapons so that they can do their work more effectively. Second target is political leaders who are themselves confused. I get so many, I give these talks, and a large part of my audience are very young people. This is good news. Large part of them are college students or under 30 type people who come and tell me, how do we help you, how do we join, because our leaders, our mentors, they're not able to answer these questions the way you're able to answer them. They're also confused, they're contradictory, and we can't figure it out. And a lot of them don't even want to take the stage and handle questions. So that is the second target, is our politically active youth leaders, to educate them. Then I have been unsuccessful so far in making a big impact on media. I would like to be able to do that, but the media seems to only be interested in people who are representing a political party, and I don't. So they're not interested. And then I'm interested in the college crowd, the universities and the campuses and the young professors. A lot of young professors in places like Delhi University, JNU, IITs, Indian Institute of Sciences, they are following my ideas, and they have, each of them is retailing. The classroom is a retail outlet where you are teaching students. So I see myself as a person who is doing R&D and coming up with game-changing ideas. I have to then install them into others who do the retailing. I'm not a retailer because it will take too much effort of mine. If I'm a retailer, I can't do research. So I either have to be doing research for new ideas, or I have to go spend all my time doing retailing. I do a certain amount of retailing for a new book just to popularize it and spread the buzz. But once I feel that enough discussion has started and will continue discussing on its own, then I go into my think tank mode and write my next book. So I'm doing innovative thinking, coming out with these paradigm-changing ideas, and planting them with religious leaders. I mean, Hindu Sampradaya leaders, politically active people, and university-type people. Then it's their job to take it further into the grassroots. That's my approach. Can somebody, yeah, please.
Hello, sir. My question to you is, we talk of leftist grants. Then we say JNU is a leftist bastion. Then we say the left media is totally pro-leftist. Then we say leftist is controlling that, leftists have infiltrated this. But why is it that leftists are winning every battle? Like, are the right-wing forces sleeping?
Okay, they have been sleeping. In fact, I don't like the term right wing and all that. Let's say Hindu groups, political groups have suffered from a management or leadership crisis. Leadership who did not understand enough, did not read enough, they're not that knowledgeable, they're not doing the Purv Paksha. We did not create a Hindu seminary where this kind of research would go on. I've offered it for 20 years to help them, guide them, but they were all into, we are lofty, we are shining, we are invincible, we are 5,000 years old. So all this grandiose talk meant that they really never did anything. And as far as Hindu spiritual leadership is concerned, they have been either very obsessed and preoccupied with their own little sampradaya, their own little group, trying to make sure it's doing okay, but not looking at the big picture. Or they're into this, Devtas have assured us all will be well, ultimately it's all mithya and it'll all be fine, the truth is one. They're into these quick one-liner tweet type of slogans. Even before Twitter was invented, many Indians were basically the Twitter level of thinking. And this is the problem. So we have not, and then there is the role of media to turn us into morons, dumb down. The page 3 ideas, the page 5 ideas, everything is sort of superficial pop culture. I call this the moronization of the masses, which the media love to do. So this is a very serious problem. You should know. We are the tradition of intellectually grounded, the tradition of the first intellectually grounded tradition of the world. Christians will tell you the Bible is not an intellectual document. It is a document of do this, don't do that, fear, historical battle, he killed this one, that one. Later, Greek thought, which was dismissed as pagan, is introduced into the Bible later on to create what's called theology, which is philosophical. So theology is born centuries after Christ as an afterthought. It's not originally there, like in the Upanishads, philosophy is built in. Okay, so philosophy is not built into the Bible, it has to be added as another lens to make it philosophical. So if you look at the various traditions of the world, we are the oldest intellectual tradition in the world. And who are the leaders today are not intellectuals. So this is a kind of a shame also for us. You see, so I feel the problem is many levels of problem. And to solve it correctly, it's like a doctor telling a patient that you have to change this, that. But the patient has got very low pulse, he's dying, and he has to put him on a respirator. He doesn't have the luxury of time to fix all these things properly. He has to do some emergency. So we have some emergency situation in our culture because it's falling apart in many ways. At the same time, we have some very medium-term, long-term things to do. And that's where I'm focusing.
Namaste, Rajiv ji.
to ask one question in this context only. There are authors like Romila Thapar, Ramchandra Goy and Kanchalaya. They are getting glorified by our intellectuals and media. And how should we counter them? There are many civil service the students who are preparing for civil services are referring to those books written by these distortions, and they are getting distorted because of this. How should we counter them?
So, I have offered to go on mainstream TV and debate these people. I have offered that. But when they ask for a Hindu response, the Hindu leaders don't want to bring me in because maybe I'm not part of an organization. They will like to go themselves or even with a mediocre person, even though he can't bring any new light. And he has not studied the opponent the way I have studied those guys very detailed. Even though they have not studied them and they can't answer them, but their ego or their prestige or whatever, they like to just be on the camera themselves. So I cannot help if I'm not invited. And the opposing people are not going to invite me because they're scared of me. It's our own Hindus who have to invite me. So what you can do is to get Hindu organizations to say, okay, why don't you invite knowledgeable people to speak as a Hindu rather than less knowledgeable people to speak as a Hindu. That's what you can do. I was invited at a major Hindu organization's headquarters in Delhi just a few days ago, and I was amazed and very impressed that the hall was full and there were mostly very young people. And so many of them asking these questions. Some of them even said that this is refreshing that you can answer our questions, you're happy to answer our questions, we're not getting this guidance from our leaders. And then one person stood up and said, I don't want to name this organization, but said that this organization, whichever one was hosting me, has tried to deal with these issues for decades but unsuccessfully. Why don't you support Rajiv, who is able to deal with more successfully? And the person who was hosting me did not say, yes, we will, but said, oh, we'll think this, that. So, they want this knowledge, but they want to appropriate it, plagiarize it, and call it like their own and be able to talk. But if you haven't done this tapas, if you haven't done the purusharth, and you don't even know, and you don't know the rigor of depth, you cannot play the game of chess just by watching a grandmaster make some moves and copy that. You have to really know it. So this is a kind of tapas. This is a kind of kshatriyata. It is not kshatriyata with bombs and weapons, but an intellectual kshatriyata. We have not created these kind of people. We have these very quick one-liner, very shortcut, quickly copy this guy, copy paste, put out a blog. We have many of those kind of people. I did a full workshop in Bangalore on the topic was how to be an intellectual kshatriya. And I'm very happy that so many people were there, young people, almost all of them, and they wanted more and more. They wanted to do like many days of workshop next time, and the workshop was oversubscribed. We had a hall with a couple hundred capacity, a lot more people were interested. So I know that the demand is there, but this demand is not being satisfied by the organizations that exist. And so I don't have an organization in India. I do not have a Tikana, I don't have any office, I don't have anybody, just a bunch of volunteers who are very wonderful people who are trying to help me. So there is a disconnect between where the knowledge and expertise of leadership, Kshatriya leadership lies. That is one group, one set of individuals, versus where there is infrastructure, funding, organizations, those guys don't have the leadership. So we have a disconnect. Where there is large groups of people with infrastructure, money, leadership and all that, there is internal politics, they do not have good scholarship. And where there is scholarship, those people do not have this infrastructure. And that marrying these together is a very big challenge.
Namaskar Ji.
Sure.
Sir, in most of your books you have written about Christianity or basically targeting Christianity. As far as Islam is concerned, you have not gone in depth into it. And here in Mumbai, there are few so-called scholars, like Zakir Naik and all who.
I would love to debate Zakir Naik. If you can arrange it, you should arrange it. Yeah, it should be. I wouldn't like to do what Sri Ravi Shankar did, which is go to his organization and his organization control the video. He did not have his own video people, so they edited and made him look like a fool. And he had no. That is bad strategy. You have to, as a Kshatriya, you have to take your own video team. And and you have to have a honest, fair, neutral moderator that you have to select. So it's not that one guy keeps talking and shouts you down, and then you look like strange, on YouTube. And that Zakir Naik would try to do that. So I would want a fair and neutral playing field and forum. We can come to a neutral forum and have a proper neutral moderator. And it either should be live so that nobody can edit these things, or we should have our own video camera also. And if you can get in, I would love to do it.
So actually what this person in particular he tries to instill among people, even among Hindus, is he says idolatry is not even there in Hinduism. He tries to portray that even idol worship is not in Hinduism. He quotes
So let me answer that question. Let me answer that question. Firstly, it is not for him to define Hinduism, it is for Hindus to define Hinduism. Secondly, and you can tell him I said that, I'm not afraid. Tell him that I said that. Okay. Secondly, Hinduism is not, as being an open architecture, we do not have a finality of prophet, finality of book, and if you say that there is a newer prophet, we'll chop your head off. We do not have that system. Okay. So we have an open-ended discovery by enlightened masters. New enlightened masters come and give us new insights, which is why we are not locked in a corner and frozen in time like some other traditions are. And we are refreshing our knowledge for each age and time and context. In fact, Manu himself says that this is not a permanent book, this is a smriti that you have to rewrite for every time and place. Manu says that. There is a difference between shruti and smriti. And I've mentioned this many times, and then Devdutt Patnaik appropriated this idea and made it his own. But and I've argued with him that you should at least acknowledge your sources. We have a difference between Shruti and Smriti. And the difference is that while Shruti is eternal, thank you so much. While Shruti is eternal, Smriti is changing. Smriti is supposed to change. So we have to write new Smritis for today. So this idea of how we worship, what is the protocol, people are discovering new ways of worshipping, and they're allowed to do that. And as far as murtis are concerned, let's not call it idol. Idol is an Abrahamic term against pagans, and therefore we don't have idols, we have murtis. As far as murtis are concerned, here is the real problem. If you have a religion which says God is only external, that is called transcendence, means God is transcendent from the universe. He's not in the world, he's not here, he's not immanent. The word immanence means God is present in things. Okay, God is present in things, trees, rivers, various things, God is present. So if you have a religion that says God is only transcendent, which means God is only outside, that is a very important principle in Islam. Allah is only outside, Allah is not permeating. Okay, and in our tradition, we have Nirgun Brahm and Nirakar, which is beyond all categories and beyond all thought, we can't describe. That would be similar to the Allah idea. But we also have Sagun Brahman, Sakar, who is present everywhere, who is inside everywhere. This is the philosophical difference. So, if I'm worshipping God's presence in something, I'm allowed to do that as a Hindu. I'm allowed to do that. In the Vedas, you have a yagna, you bring Agni. You bring Agni and say, this is Agni. It is not material, it is not important whether it is made to look like a human form or not. The point is in Islam, even non-human form like Agni, you can't worship. That is the point. You can't worship God's presence in the world, in matter, in substance. You can't. You can't worship God as Nam Roop. You can't worship God as form. You can only worship formless. So the issue is not idol worship, the issue is whether God can be worshipped in the world, presence in the world, or only an absent God can be worshipped. That is the philosophical disagreement. If he's honest, he will have to say that. And Hindus have always said that you have a choice. You can worship the formless God who is abstract beyond all categories. You can worship the God in form. It's your choice. Islam does not give you that choice. That is why, I think I sent a tweet to clarify this. There's a difference between sacred and holy. Okay. Islam does not have sacred sites. Islam has holy sites. And if you ask a very learned person in Islam, what is the difference? He will say that you cannot say Kaaba is sacred. You cannot say my mosque is sacred. You can say it is holy. Because if you go to the local mosque and say this mosque is sacred, what you are saying is that God is present in the mosque and I am worshipping God's presence. We are not allowed to do that. God is present only outside the cosmos, and mosque is a place where we get together and target our prayer to God. Do you understand? So the religious sites of Islam are holy, which means that they have a historical significance and they are out of respect for God, but it is not that God is present. God is not present there. Whereas sacredness would mean God's presence in those places. So Hinduism has sacred river, sacred mountains, sacred trees, sacred forms in mandirs. So we worship sacredness of God's presence in the universe, in the world, in our home, in our mandir, in the house, in anywhere we want, And in Islam, you are not allowed to do that. Now, if you give him that kind of a detailed answer, it has nothing to do with whether we worship this way or that way. That change in methodology of worshipping is our right. We can keep changing. But the philosophical principle of God being both outside and inside simultaneously in Hinduism is as old as the Vedas.
Alright, see, my question is, why can't it be dharma versus adharma? Why can't it be atheist versus atheist? Why can't it be religious versus non-religious? Why does it have to be Hindu versus Muslims?
It is not Hindu versus Muslim.
Or Christianity, or for that matter, any other religion.
Anyway, it is not. It is Astika versus Nastika. That is how I'm redefining the debate. I'm defining this debate. In this book, I'm saying I'm not defending Hinduism, I'm defending Astika. And I'm define my definition of Astika is anyone who respects open architecture. And anyone who demands exclusivity is disrespecting open architecture. He's a bad citizen for an open architecture because he's a bully who says only I'm right, all of you are wrong, and therefore he cannot be Astika, he has to be Nastika. So I am giving every Muslim a chance, every Muslim a choice to define himself as Astika by saying I'm open architecture, and then he's part of us. But it is up to him to make the choice. And if he has a hard time making that choice, it's not my fault. You see, when I in the book Being Different, I established this principle called mutual respect. Some of you would know because you read this book. Mutual respect is not tolerance, because tolerance is a kind of looking down, it's a bit snobbish, it's kind of I'm right, but I tolerate you. It's kind of rude, it's a arrogant posture. Mutual respect is that I respect you and I want you to respect me. Now, after 9/11, Muslims in America were quite shaken up and very scared and all that. So there was this bye-bye between Muslims and Hindus. There was a lot of bye-bye going on after 9/11. So I was invited to some radios and radio stations and talk shows as a Hindu, and they wanted to have this discussion. So one of my talk show appearances was in Dallas. I went to a radio station it was called South Asian Radio Station, owned by Pakistani, and I was interviewed and I talked about mutual respect. And as a Hindu principle, I talked about I said this is an important Hindu principle. So a prominent Pakistani caller called in. She was well known as a local leader. That's what I found out later. She called in and she said, welcome Rajiv Bhai, great to have you in Dallas, welcome you. I'm so happy you talked about mutual respect, we need it, and we, the Muslim Pakistanis love this idea, we also believe in mutual respect. She said that. Now most Indians would be very happy and end the matter, but I'm always trying to probe further. So I said, I'm so delighted that my Muslim brothers and sisters accept this idea of mutual respect with Hindus, but I'd like to clarify what that means. It means that you respect my right to worship images, because we do worship images, You respect my right to worship God in feminine form because we do worship God in feminine form. You respect my right to believe in karma and reincarnation because we do believe in these things. She hung up. Because while it's nice diplomacy to talk about mutual respect, she cannot respect these particular things. She cannot. So this business of everybody saying, I also believe in this open architecture, you have to be very careful and very detailed and push them. Then do you believe in, do you respect this, that principle? So certain things violate the open architecture. Exclusivity claims are one of them. And therefore, to be in the open architecture, to be in Astika, you have to give up your exclusivity claim. So if your friend from some religion X or Y is willing to do that, fine, he's part of the Astika. It doesn't, he can have any Ishtadevta he wants, but he cannot claim that to be exclusive, that's the only possible valid Ishtadevta. He cannot claim that. If he insists on his being the only way, his being the only Ishtadevta, and his history and his sacred geography being the only sacred geography, then he is really creating tension. And if he is creating tension, that is a dharma. Then it's not that we are one religion versus another, we are dharma versus a dharma. You see, so when you say, why can't we have dharma versus a dharma, that is exactly what I'm asking for. But not every religion that claims itself to be dharma is dharma. Even Ravan called it dharma. Even Bin Laden calls it, his religion is valid, he said. Even Hitler said his religion is valid. Nobody has a banner saying, I believe in adharma. Nobody has a banner like that. Every adharma claims that they are dharma, you see. So you need a criteria for adharma. You cannot say that he has to check the box saying he belongs to adharma. Nobody does that. You see what I'm saying? So we have to come up with our criteria of what is adharmic. And exclusivity is an example of adharmic because exclusivity violates other people's right to freedom. And if you claim exclusivity, especially if you want the right to expand your exclusivity and capture other people, that is bad for society. So that is adharmic. Stop? Okay. See, I have never, in all these years, said, I'm tired and I'm chalo ghar chale jao, you don't ask me questions. I want to tell you very honestly, I'm physically very tired. I've done 35 events in the last 28 days, and I have another 15 events to go in the last 10 days. And even though I'm tired, tomorrow morning I take a flight, I go to Ahmedabad and finish the talk, then I go tomorrow night to Delhi, the next day I have 4 events. Even then, I'm not the one saying, okay, let's finish this, I just want you to know. I can keep talking, answering your questions, but what you can do, because there are practical constraints, I understand. What I would like is everybody's email ID. Is there a way to capture email IDs here? Okay, if you going to, okay, then I'll put you on my list and we can continue this discussion online. Thank you.
You can speak later on. He's here. You can speak to him outside.
I'll be signing the books.
Yeah, he's also ready to sign the books which we'll purchase. So we cannot really express our gratefulness to Rajiv ji for such a fantastic interaction with all of us. Please give him